So welcome back to the SportsBruiserz podcast, episode 5. If you have not seen the last 4 videos, I'll leave a link down below when I post this on YouTube, as well as if you want to go check out my YouTube page as well. There's a playlist for podcast videos as well. You can go check out there too. On top of that, and also please follow me on Twitter or X, where I post up daily on my opinions, updates, breaking news, reports all across the sports land on there. And for this one, we'll be talking about the NFL season so far. The first 4 weeks, the first quarter of the NFL season is under wraps, and it's come and gone. It's a hurry flown by. It feels like just a week or so ago that we were getting ready for week 1 of the NFL season, and before you know it, we are getting closer to week 5. The second quarter of the NFL season. And I want to talk about just kind of the review of the first quarter. Some surprising teams, surprising players, good or bad, and how it's played out thus far at the NFL season. So thus far, and we're going to be bringing down more stuff too. Talking about certain teams. We'll get into the report about the Browns with the quarterback change to Dylan Gabriel. At this point, we'll talk about other teams as well. Tennessee tight ends who look historically bad. In my opinion, that could honestly be 0-17 at the end of the season. When you look at their schedule moving forward, it looks absolutely brutal for them. No question about that. But again, this will be all under the umbrella of the first quarter of the season, like we'll talk about. So far, let's go to the playoff standings so far and what we have. So starting with the AFC, we have the Bills, one of the only 2 undefeated teams left, 4-0 with this one. And this is from NFL 2, and other places might have the seeding differently. There was one other one where I had the Colts and Steelers. We'll get to that in different, in a different order from 3 to 4. So NFL has Steelers 3 to 4. Other ones had Colts 3 to 4. Just want to point that out real quick. But going back to Buffalo, only undefeated AFC team in that side of the conference. Again, one of only 2 teams in the NFL undefeated. And they've been oppressive so far, offensively, I should say. Defense, it is very worrisome, especially as a Bills fan, of course. It is. You look at the New Orleans Saints game, offensively, I had no issue with them for the most part. They did have, towards the end of the first half of the game, kind of hitting a wall, stalling out. And that was a little bit, worrisome. But, of course, they picked it up, fixed everything in the second half, and they took off as needed for that one. So, defensively is more the issue. Offensively, we already know Josh Allen. He is still the MVP favorite right now to repeat back-to-back ones potentially. Offense looks phenomenal. James Cook is already emerging as one of the top running backs in the NFL. What he's done the first 4 weeks. Had a slow start week 1 against Baltimore and has had 3 straight 100-yard games. On top of that, and you look at him, he's explosive. He's a playmaker on top of that, too. So that's something that the Bills have been really lacking for a while now. You look at, counting, of course, last year, too, before last year as well, they've really just struggled to find a true, legitimate running back. You've had Devin Singletary, of course, in years prior, and he was solid, but nothing close to James Cook. So definitely offensively for Joe Brady in the offense, it's immense that they brought back James Cook on that extension, and he's paid off dividends, no doubt. You could say he's even worth more than what he got paid so far. Other players, too, that really surprised me, too, is Coach Dalton Kincaid as well. Khalil Shakir making some plays. Keon Coleman, had a great start to the season, over 100 yards receiving. Has tapered off a little bit, but has been consistent as of late. I think definitely has looked a bit better in terms of, not stat-wise, but also just how he looks on the field. So you have that as well. But going back defensively, just again, very worrisome about that side. You do have people coming back soon with Ed Oliver, Matt Milano. You do have Maxwell Harrison, the first-round pick this year, who is potentially coming off of IR, or at least is able to. You have the suspensions with Ogunjobi, with Hoyt, that have to wait a few more weeks to come back as well. So again, a little bit worrisome on the defensive end where they've struggled. And we saw, of course, a great comeback in week 1 against Baltimore, but again, it was the defense could not do anything. Derrick Henry, who is, you can look as an indictment, of course, on the defense on top of that for the Bills, is he had a phenomenal game, a typical Derrick Henry game, over 160 yards rushing. After that, he has done absolutely nothing. He has done nothing the next 3 weeks with Baltimore. So you look at that and go, is defense playing well against, Derrick Henry, or is there something wrong with Derrick Henry and the defense for the Bills is just awful? And it could be, it could be a combination of both. But certainly the Bills have look at their schedule. They have a good path, a great path, I should say, to the number 1 seed, which they have been trying to get for years now. And it's only been a mission since all the way back when they lost the first AFC Championship game in 2020. That was a mission to get the number 1 seed. They've come close a couple times, but just can't dismantle Kansas City last year, who got it, and the year prior to that, Baltimore. And it's just, again, it is set up easier than ever for them. Schedule, which people have criticized them for, which is not their fault. They don't make the schedule. It made them years in advance. So if you want to say it all wrapped up perfectly or all fell apart perfectly this year for the Bills for their schedule, they still have to go out there and win. They still have to go out there and win the easy games. They have a tough one coming up on Sunday Night Football. Like, so the game I'm going to against the New England Patriots, that will be a difficult team because I think the Patriots are a solid team, maybe a dark horse team to make the playoffs, no doubt. They have the capability. I like Drake May. I think he's took a big step forward in his sophomore year. He has thrown a little bit picks, but he's been better as of late as well. And I like Vrabel as a head coach too. That was a bad mistake for Tennessee to move off of him. And you see, like I said in the beginning, you see how bad the Titans are on top of that. So I got for the Bills, it's their race to lose at the number one seed right now. They have, I would say by far they are, I wouldn't say by far, but right now they are the number one team in the AFC playing. The Kansas City Chiefs are slowly creeping back up in that discussion after a great performance against Baltimore on Sunday afternoon at 4:00 when you watched it against the Baltimore 37-20 or really 37-13 if you want to take away that garbage touchdown at the end. So again, Buffalo is number one in the AFC, no question about that. Not just from ranking wise, but also just playing wise. But again, Kansas City is creeping up there slowly as they get healthier. You go to number 2 seed, the LA Chargers, who looked great the first 3 weeks and had that staple win. They really had that statement win week 1 at Rio against the Chiefs, and they looked great for the first 3 weeks. And then you had that brutal loss to the New York Giants. Jackson Dart's first start in his NFL career. It was a close game, but again, that is a bittersweet. I should say not bittersweet. That was a horrible loss. I should really put it out there. It is a win that, going back to what I said for Buffalo, those are the games that you have to win if you want to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender. You want to get that number 1 seed like the Chargers are. They're not that far behind from Buffalo, the 3-1, but that's the difference thus far. There's still plenty of time for things to happen. There's plenty of times for the Bills to mess up. There's plenty of times for the Chargers to make up for that. But still, again, that's the key thing thus far is you have to get those easy ones. Like, even though the Bills struggle against the Saints, or you want to say if a bad team like the Jets, well, they kind of blew out the Jets, but if you want to look at maybe the Dolphins, per se, is a bad team as well. Yes, they struggled a little bit with those teams, but they found a way to win and close it out, as opposed to Chargers that it was a close game but fell short in that one. But even still with that loss, I mean, other brutal things, no doubt, is offensive line. I mean, going into the season, you already had Slater out for the year. Joe Alt will miss several weeks of the NFL season. We don't know how many games to be exact, but it is a massive loss for the offense, for the running game that Mount Hampton has already started to ramp up a little bit as the weeks have gone along. He started to look like the first round pick himself, along with Ashton Jenney too. Had a big game last week, or this past week, I should say. But still, they are in the lower tier of the running game as well. Justin Herbert has looked great thus far, but I just worry more so Joe Alt. I mean, we can throw away Slater because he's out for the whole year, so we can't say, oh, maybe if he comes back, he's not. He's not. Even if they make a deep playoff run, he's not going to come back. So it's more critical on Joe Alt of what he's going to do, or how long he'll be out, I should say, and how it's going to affect the offense. But again, Justin Herbert has looked great this far. Harbaugh in his second year with the Chargers has looked great overall. You might have some question marks maybe with the defense a little bit, but again, overall, they are definitely one of the better teams, and I would say certainly a Super Bowl caliber team, a threat to go deep in the AFC to maybe potentially make a Super Bowl run, no doubt about that. But again, the biggest question mark is just Joe Alt. Some positives, no doubt. Besides Justin Herbert, is the wide receivers. I mean, if you want to say the shocking revelation of Quentin Johnston, who has finally figured out how to catch the football in his 3rd season. He's looked great so far. He has been, he's finally been up to that first round pick that what people believed him to be. Had the great package, the size, the speed. Hands were questionable, no doubt, early on in his career, but he's starting to really put it all together and be a great wide receiver, as opposed to someone that maybe you're hoping to really kick out the door once his rookie contract is over with. Now this is someone you can legitimately think about of, hey, he can be around for a long time. Keenan Allen has played well too in his return for the Chargers. McConkey has taken a step back, but it's not, I don't think, a detriment on him. It's just more so the weapons around him. Just Quentin Johnson stepping up, Keenan Allen making plays as well. McConkey's still a good wide receiver. The stats may not back it up, or you may be questioning a little bit for the lack of production, but there's just a lot of weapons around for the Chargers right now. But overall, again, I think very impressed with what Harbaugh has done, and for Justin Herbert, what they've done in the second season so far together. Next is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And like I said, another place that I saw that was, the standings were different was the score. Their standings was flipped. The Colts 3 and the Steelers 4, like I talked about earlier. This one has a Steelers 3, Colts 4. But going to the Steelers right now, great spot for them. I mean, definitely the offense has looked a little bit slow to begin with after a crazy start to Week 1 against the Jets in that one. But it has struggled a little bit. The Steelers game not high, or the Patriots game not high scoring and so forth. I mean, the Vikings definitely was an interesting game, no doubt. DK Metcalf had an amazing game in that one. But you look at the quarterback position, finally a huge upgrade after what they had last year. Aaron Rodgers far better than Russell Wilson, what he's doing. And you see what happened to Russell Wilson this year so far, going back to the Giants. So, a great start to Aaron Rodgers' career with the Steelers. Offense looks a little bit better than last year. DK Metcalf has been a big piece of a great part of that offense, no doubt about that. When you look at the rest of the receiving group that is a little bit lacking, certainly worth the trade and the contract thus far. Great connection between Rodgers and DK Metcalf. The defense was a little bit worrisome Week 1, like I said, for the Jets, especially when you look at hindsight 2020, looking back at now these next few weeks of how the Jets have struggled. You kind of question, well, how did the Steelers struggle in Week 1 against Justin Fields and the New York Jets? But they have gotten better as the year has gone on. Just look at points wise after the Jets win, the narrow one, but they gave up 32 on the defensive side. After that, 17, 14, 21. Pretty good overall for this one. And offense, too, you look at that 31, 21, 24. Now, you would like to hope to get into that closer to the 30-point range and not be 21, 24. It's not, I don't think, good enough to win, especially when you get to tougher opponents like they get to the Bills later on in the season, as well if you want to beat the Green Bay Packers when you get closer to that game as well. Chargers, too, on top of that. But, again, good enough right now. Great spot what they're in for the Steelers. We could question the future of this team, especially the quarterback position beyond this season. But for right now, just staying in the moment here, I think the Steelers have been, no doubt, a surprising team. No question about that at all. They do have a bye week this week, so unfortunately no action for them. Next game, they'll play the Cleveland Browns. So it already sets up perfectly for them to have another easy win going into next week and going 4-1 on the year. But again, very impressive with the Steelers and what Aaron Rodgers has so far. A lot of people kind of question how Aaron Rodgers would be because of just how he looked with the Jets, which if you look at the stats last year for the Jets, it wasn't horrible. I think people bashed him more because of just the team record, team success, which is certainly valid. They were horrible last year, but in terms of his individual stats, they were up there with some of the better quarterbacks in the league. So I don't think it was people. It's not as bad as people made it out to be of how it was. He had a solid season last year, and so far he's had a good one thus far this year for the Steelers with Arthur Smith. That's something down the line I do want to question still, because I'm not a big Arthur Smith fan. I think he's bad at running offenses and mismanaging talent. So far it has worked thus far, obviously 3-1 record. So, you can't really question that right as of right now, but curious how it's going to be down the line. One of the most surprising teams in the AFC, and not just the AFC, but NFL in general, is the Indianapolis Colts. Who would have thought after the first 4 weeks they'd be 3-1 with Daniel Jones? Daniel Jones has looked really good. He has revived his NFL career, what he's looked at the Giants. And I did make a video a few months ago about this. I think it was titled along the lines of Daniel Jones would be the next Sam Darnold in 2025, around the range like that. And I made that video saying that if I had to point the next Sam Darnold, like how he was with the Vikings, I see Daniel Jones as being that because of the weapons he has, because of just being with a better coach, a better offensive line. And he's shown that. It's I don't want to go on a limb saying that, but I definitely took a chance on, hey, I think this could be the next Sam Darnold this year, and he's looked great thus far. Now again, still a ton of time left in the season. This is just the first quarter of the NFL season, but so far is impressive. I don't think anyone looked at the Colts as 3-1 on the year. Maybe at best you switch the numbers around 1-3 at best for the Colts. Going into the season, they've looked great thus far. Looking at the win probabilities for the playoff chances, as a current, it's a 76% chance. If they win, it bumps it up to 82% on the season. Going back to the Steelers real quick, which is a little bit surprising, you look at for their chances as of right now, it's 59%. The lowest out of the first 4 teams thus far, not looking in the wild card. So a little bit interesting for the Steelers there. But going back to the Colts, again, very impressive what he's done. Jonathan Taylor has been one of the best, or maybe say the best running back in the NFL. You can kind of go back and forth between James Cook and Jonathan Taylor in terms of just production right now. I know you might throw a name like Saquon Barkley, but I had struggled a little bit, not just with him, but the kind of the whole offense in general. But no doubt, Jonathan Taylor has looked great. Michael Pittman Jr., Tyler Warren has looked good too, as well. So again, a very surprising team. And it's nice to see that Daniel Jones has revived his career and has looked good, because certainly there's plenty of times before I bashed him, I've criticized him, I've criticized the Giants for extending him, and maybe looking at it now, it wasn't a horrible option, but just a horrible team around them. So it was a great decision, but just didn't have the talent around him to have him play like he did in maybe the first year with Brian Dable, or look at the Colts right now. So again, I'm very surprised to see for the Colts to be at this point. I'm happy for their fans because they've been through it all for the quarterback position. I mean, you look at Anthony Richardson as well. You do question what's his future now. I mean, we probably know the answer. Ultimately, is that he's going to be gone from the Colts after this year. Certainly I throw out there and say, hey, I won't be surprised if Anthony Richardson plays this year because of Daniel Jones if it doesn't work out. And so far, Daniel Jones has the command of the quarterback position, and as right now, it just. I don't see no end in sight. If he can just keep doing what he's doing, absolutely he's going to play the whole year. And especially if he can get this team to the playoffs, yes, Anthony Richardson's going to be, forgone. He's going to be an afterthought. He's going to be on a different team next year. So we have the Colts there at 3-1. Looking at the wild card now, rounding out the top four there for the division leaders, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, they are 3-1, but I would say they're very disappointing, more so for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence does not look good at all this season. He is not, certainly impressing me. The only person offensively that's impressing me is Travis Etienne, who was another player that really revived his career thus far in the season. He's played phenomenal, too, on top of that. But Trevor Lawrence has not looked good at all. I think he's been okay at best. The stats are subpar for, again, dubbed a generational talent. High expectations for Lawrence. He's not looked good, not just for this season, but for his entire career, entirely. And you look at 58.3 completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Yes, again, they are 3-1. I think more so that the defense is playing great so far, but everything else is it's very lackluster. I mean, you go down the list here. Travis Hunter, so far in 4 weeks, 13 receptions, 118 yards, 0 touchdowns. Brian Thomas Jr. had a phenomenal, an amazing rookie season. Going here, 12 catches, 164 yards, 0 touchdowns. And again, going back to Trevor Lawrence, below 60%. It's unacceptable. It is. I mean, Etienne is having a great year. 65 carries, 394 yards, 2 touchdowns. But again, they are, at this point, they are kind of frauds. Yes, the record is great. Some people were thrown out to say, hey, if they beat the 49ers going into Sunday, I should say, if they beat the 49ers, people need to consider them a legitimate team. No, the 49ers are a decent team, but they also have a lot of injuries, and I want to throw everything as an excuse for that. But they have a ton of injuries. They do. So you beat a 49ers team that is good, but not at full strength. But even if you want to throw out the window and say, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, it's still the 49ers. They won. They're still not an impressive team to me. I'm sorry. Even at 3-1, they are not impressive at all. If I stack them up to all the other teams, the Bills, the Chargers, the Steelers, the Colts, I don't see them winning that. I'm sorry. I really don't. And maybe the Colts could be a coin toss at that point, but I just don't trust Trevor Lawrence right now. I think he's played subpar. Again, going back to the generational label and all the expectations for him, he's looked awful. I think he has. I shouldn't say maybe not as far as awful, but he's looked okay at best, at very best. The stats are brutal to see, and there's always a ton of excuses for Trevor Lawrence, and some of them are valid to the coaches and so forth, the talent. But at some point in time, if he is generational, if he's this amazing talent, he has to elevate everyone, and he has the weapons. He has Travis Hunter, he has Brian Thomas Jr., he has Travis Etienne, Strange has stepped up well. He's your receiving leader for the team at 182 yards. So again, at some point, Trevor Lawrence has to elevate his game. I don't know how much further the Jaguars can keep this going. Looking next, they have the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, that's gonna be a big test there. All right, and then they quarterback for quarterback. Who's gonna outduel the other? So Seattle next. That's gonna be a tough one, especially for them defensively. Seattle has a good defense. The Rams is gonna be another tough challenge too. So the next 3 games are gonna be tough. We could be talking about Jacksonville going from 3-1 to 3-4 and being out of the playoffs at that point, depending on how the playoff picture looks for everyone else. So again, don't want to go on the hype train yet and say that Jacksonville is legitimate. I think they are frauds at this point, and this next 3 games is going to really test what they are at this level. Going to the 6th seed, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, 2-2. You could basically throw them out the water. They look horrible. Jake Browning is awful. The offensive line is bad on top of that. The defense is doing its very best, but still subpar. There is rumors, of course, about trying to get after a quarterback. I've seen some people say Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson. At this point, it's just I don't know what I just don't see anything happening. I think that, they had a great start, but at what cost? It cost them Joe Burrow for the year. T. Higgins and just Jamar Chase can't do what they do because they just don't have a quarterback that can throw it to them. That's just really what it comes down to with that. And it's brutal for Bengals fans. Once again, going through another year where Burrow is with most likely a season-ending injury. At that point, maybe they shock the world and are still in the playoffs. And at that point, Joe Burrow kind of hurries back in and then tries to take off the last few remaining weeks and get them to the playoffs. But as of right now, I don't see it happening. I do not see it happening at all. I don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback position at this point. You just kind of let it sink. But also, too, you have so much money invested in those top guys and the receivers. On the defensive side, Hubbard, you have to really try and find a way. Or sorry, not Hubbard. I apologize. Hendrickson to get him locked down long term. I just don't know what's going to happen with Cincinnati. I mean, you have teams kind of on the bubble that are going to kind of nip at the Bengals' feet right now with the Broncos, the Patriots. As there are two teams right off the bat, I see that are right now better. I put them as is better right now than the Cincinnati Bengals. They're hanging on a thread as of right now on a wild card spot. But don't be surprised if one of those two teams jumps over them. Chiefs are going to pass them, no question about that, and they're going to be quickly falling to the 7th seed, and then someone's going to jump them, and they'll be out of the playoff race. So again, out of the team, for everyone else here, even though I just bashed Jacksonville, they are still in a better position than Cincinnati as of right now because of just how bad the quarterback position is. I presume that they're going to make a trade at some point. Who that's going to be, I don't know. That could be someone maybe entirely different outside Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. We'll see what happens with that. But again, it's very disappointing for Bengals fans. I'm sorry they have to go through this again. Another brutal injury to Joe Burrow. Hopefully things can turn around next year for you guys. Kansas City right now 2-2, struggling a little bit, but again, had a strong performance against Baltimore. And that one, 37-20 was the final score. Patrick Mahomes had by far the best game of the season there. 4 touchdowns, over 200 yards passing. They did have Xavier Worthy back in the game. Made some plays there, showed the blazing speed that he has. And again, this is, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I mean, until we get to a point where it's getting close to, towards the end of the season, and they are on the fringe of the playoff race, and they're struggling, they're barely over 500, then we can have discussions about the Chiefs at that point. But as of right now, the Chiefs are Chiefs. They still have a good chance, I'm going to say, to get the number 1 seed still. Again, there's still plenty of time that could happen. As long as the Bills can keep doing what they're doing, yes, the Chiefs have no shot. It definitely helps that the Bills have 2 more wins over the Chiefs right now as it stands. And, of course, they'll meet in a few more weeks. At that pivotal moment, that could be deciding the final factor of who's going to get the number 1 seed at that point. It could be someone else, but certainly could put the nail in coffin for the Chiefs to get the number 1 seed at that point. But they're starting to ramp up. They're starting to get players back. Again, Xavier Worthy back. I don't know if he's 100% healthy at that point, but certainly good enough to make plays. You do have Rashee Rice coming back in a few more weeks, so we'll see how things play out there. Certainly a non-factor really is just Travis Kelce. He's had some moments here and there. He had a touchdown week 1, but has looked completely off. He is a shell of himself compared to the standard of what Travis Kelce has been in years past. If you want to say he's more just 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the door with Taylor Swift and more of his post NFL career, that could certainly be a case. But it just seems more of, I don't want to say it goes as far as say he's just there for the ride, but he has not been a factor at all. The running game has gotten a little bit better. Again, that was a bit better against the Ravens with Pachenko. I think Kareem Hunt had a couple of good runs too on top of that, but again, so some question marks. I'm not going to say the Chiefs are back offensively. There's still tons of questions with that side of the ball too. I mean, you look at the Ravens defense too. They are depleted on that side. They are battered with injuries all across the board on top of Lamar Jackson too. On top of that, missing a few weeks. So again, we'll see how it happens. They'll certainly rise up the boards of the playoff ranks. But again, offensively, I don't want to say they're back yet. Defense is still great, no question with Spagnuolo. But I want to see once everyone comes back, can they figure it out? Was this the start of the offense getting back in the rhythm, or was it just an anomaly? Because again, how Baltimore is at this point, we'll see how it is. But still, until someone can knock them out of the playoffs, they are the number 1 threat in the AFC. Even with my Bills being 4-0, they can't get over the hump with Kansas City. So until they miss the playoffs, or until someone knocks them out of the playoffs, they are, to me, my favorite to go to the Super Bowl as of right now. And it's going to wrap up again the AFC playoff race in terms of some of the players on the bubble, or teams in the bubble. I should say Broncos, Patriots to Baltimore. It's crazy to see them 1-3 at this point. They rank 12th in the AFC. The only teams worse than them is, of course, Dolphins, Browns, Jets, and Titans. In this one, you look at the Jets and Titans real quick. Two of the three 0-4 teams in the league. Both of them, you look at them, it's a little bit surprising. Titans, like we talked about real quick, I mean, they are horrible. Cam Ward is not playing well. It's not all on his fault, too, because he has no offensive pieces whatsoever. Callahan should be fired at this point. He's been horrible for the Titans so far in 2 seasons with the team. And it's just, again, it's brutal for Cam Ward. I feel sorry for him. I really do. He is a good talent, no doubt. And he just went to a horrible franchise. And I do worry that he's going to be labeled a bust because there is no help with them. You look at kind of the free agency next year for wide receivers. There is some talent, but not that much. You do have a ton of money as of right now for Spot Trek. They do have the most money in the league going into the next offseason. And they should do whatever it takes. I mean, maybe the best case scenario for them is getting the first overall pick, and you can just trade that out. You can trade down and get a ton of assets because they only have, if I looked at it correctly, 7 picks. So you have the bare minimum, of course, which is not horrible. It could be worse. You can have less than the bare minimum of the rounds, but you're kind of hoping that you have an extra draft pick in your back pocket to move around, navigate, maybe get a mid player at some point during the offseason or this season per se. But, some of the best case scenario, I think, for the Titans, which they're going to have to go through it for the whole year, is be the worst team, get the first overall pick, which is a much better quarterback class, I should say, and trade the pick and get a ton of assets back, get some players back. And if it does break out that way, kind of look at the Panthers trade with DJ Moore to go into Chicago. If you can get a trade like that, absolutely take that, and then go all out for Cam Ward. Weapons on the, for wide receivers, running backs, offensive line, whatever it has to do to build Cam Ward up, it has to be all in offense this season. Defense is a little bit shaky too, but that's what happens when the offense can do absolutely nothing. They got shut out last week against the Houston Texans. So again, horrible for Titans fans. They're going through it. I'm sorry if you guys you have to deal with it, but it's very brutal, no question. We look at the New York Jets, another surprising team after a Week 1 performance that was surprising. Justin Fields played well in that Week 1 performance against the Steelers. They looked good overall. They lost 34-32, but there was some promise. You thought, okay, maybe the Jets are on to something. It was a Week 1 loss, but there was a lot of positives to take away from it. It was a loss. It sucks, but it almost felt like almost a win because it just showed you the potential. Okay, if they can go against the Steelers like that, they can probably win a few games this year. They could probably shock people this year, and it hasn't been like that. It has been close. Aaron Glenn has been undisciplined. This team has been undisciplined under Aaron Glenn when he said he was going to fix that. It's continued. You saw that on Monday Night Football. It just kept happening. Too with the mistakes, the penalties, and so forth. When I look at their going forward to the Jets' schedule for the remaining season, it looks rough. Of course, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised because the Jets being 0-4, but I am a little bit surprised too, in the other aspect because I thought this team would be a little better. You look at after their Week 1 performance, they got blown out by Buffalo by 20. 30-10 was the score. Fields had less passing yards than Trubisky, and mind you, Trubisky kind of only threw 2 passes in the game when Josh Allen got hit in the face. Trubisky had more passing yards on one throw than Fields did the first 3 quarters of the game. You did have the heartbreaking loss to the Bucs when they thought they had the win. Bucs get the field goal late in the game, lose that 29-27, and lose the Dolphins 27-21. You look at the next few games here, you have the Cowboys, which that's going to be, maybe because of how bad the defense is for the Cowboys, but I don't have them winning that. You have the Denver Broncos, which is for me right now, a playoff caliber team, a fringe playoff caliber team. The Panthers, which you could get, a win on there. Bengals, as right now, certainly you could potentially get a win there going to the bye week after that in Week 9. So maybe at best case scenario, I see this team as 2-6 before the bye. Maybe you could steal one from the Cowboys and be, would it be 3-5? But certainly there is a valid case of them being 0-6. 0-8, my bad. 0-8 going to Week 9 for the bye week. And it's, again, I don't know what's going to happen. You can just chalk it up to be the Jets are the Jets at that point. I thought the Jets will at least get a 1 or 2 and be 2-2 at best. But Again, very disappointing for how it's played out. Fields has not played the best. He of course was hurt, so he missed one of the games. He missed the Bucks game, so Tyler Taylor was in, but still, it just the Dolphins aren't playing well. I mean, certainly they had a great night. Darren Waller came back to the NFL. Finally, made his Dolphins debut. Had a couple touchdowns. So you thought at the very least that yes, the Dolphins game was manageable to win. The Bucks game, you should have came out and won that. The Steelers game, you had a chance in that too. So it's just a lot of just falling short for the Jets in this one. So, but again, even as bad as the Jets are, they are in a much better position than the Tennessee Titans right now. Much better position, especially if you look at the quarterbacks. Fields has much more talent than Cam Ward. Cam Ward has literally nothing to play with for the Titans there. But again, that wraps up the whole AFC there. Going to the NFC real quick. To working down the Philadelphia Eagles, reigning Super Bowl champions. They're an undefeated team in NFL and only undefeated team in NFC. They have looked good, but offensively, it has not been the same since Kellen Moore has left. I mean, certainly there's questions about A.J. Brown. He had put in cryptic tweets out there about just the lack of production he's getting, lack of targets, receptions. Is that going to be a part where they're going to have a divorce in the season? I don't know. I mean, if things are going, but they're 4-0. I mean, it just seems ridiculous that you get rid of A.J. Brown at this point, but if things get really ugly, is that a possibility? Maybe. I doubt it. Like I said, Saquon Barkley has not looked like himself in terms of just the numbers he's put up, and maybe it's just a tough comparison because of what he did last year, having running for over 2,000 yards. It's not really a fair comparison to say he needs to match that this year, but certainly the offense hasn't been the best. But it hasn't been horrible, but just has looked a little bit off so far this season. But again, just getting used to a new coordinator. Kellen Moore did a great job for them last year, now off to the Saints head coach as of right now. Still a favorite in the NFC. No question about it. Even with the concerns at this point, if it was offensively, maybe a little bit some defensively, they are still by far number one favorites for the NFC going forward for this one. They still have the talent. They still have, especially on the offensive side, they're still I don't want to go as far as say now a juggernaut, but still a great team overall. And no question, be number one. I mean, there's very little to complain about as opposed to the Bills, where there is a glaring problem with the defensive side for them. The Eagles overall, yes, there is some little question marks here and there. Maybe a little internal conflict with AJ Brown and maybe a little bit of distractions there. But outside of that, certainly not that much of a problem with the Eagles there. So again, number one favorite, no question. NFC. You look at the 49ers thus far, surprisingly, with all the injuries they've had, they are 3-1. Had the loss, of course, to Jacksonville this past week, but have done well thus far, given all the injuries they have, especially offensively. Look at Brock Purdy, George Kittle, McCaffrey was a little bit worried. You were a little bit worried early at the start of the season because of I think it was a calf injury he had, or supposedly he had, but still, you always worry with him with health issues. Brandon Ayuk, Jennings, Purcell. I always butcher his name, so I apologize if I said his name wrong. I always mess it up for whatever reason, but he was on the injury list, is questionable too. On top of that, Mac Jones, I think, was also on the injury list too. So they are just always riddled with injuries. And Nick Bosa too. How can I forget? Out for the year as well. But they have done a great job. And certainly, I made a small short about talking about the 49ers game. I don't know if I did mention it in there or in a different video, but certainly that Kyle Shanahan should be considered for Coach of the Year. If they can, if the season ended today, or if you project all the way down to week 18 and they're still a top 3 team in the NFC for the seeding, absolutely that Kyle Shanahan should be Coach of the Year, because given all the injuries he's had to deal with and what he's been able to do thus far, it's been impressive. Can they keep it going? I don't know. I mean, look at for their percentage, or their percentage for playoff probability, they're at 59%. They have to win to really boost that up. With a win, 74%. With a loss, drops down to 54%. So it is key for them to win this. No question about that. And they are coming up next tomorrow. They play on Thursday night against the Rams, which is also a tough team as well, especially offensively with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Matthew Stafford on that too. Defense is starting to come along as well for the Rams on top of that. So it's big. No question. If I want to quickly just jump down to the Rams real quick for their probability, they're in a much better spot. They have right now a 85% chance to make it. With a loss, even with the loss, it's still 75. A win, almost 90%, 89 to be exact. So the 49ers have a ton to play with. It's a division game. It's on, for playoff wise, it's huge. If the 49ers lose, we are Again, still a ton of time left in the season. This is only the first quarter of the season right now. Still a ton of games left, but still, you don't want to be at this point now where you're getting close to almost, the 50-50 chance of missing the playoffs at this point. So it is pivotal for the 49ers to make it. Again, I just don't know how it's going to be with just all the injuries they have, especially even with everyone comes back eventually with Brock Purdy, Kittle. You would hope Ayuk at some point. Defensively, you lose a big part of Nick Bosa. You do. I mean, it's by far your best defensive player. So I just don't know moving forward. Could they make the playoffs? Sure. Are they going to be a threat if they go against the Eagles, the Lions, or basically the Buccaneers? I don't know. I don't. I mean, I guess you could say because of just with all the injuries. Again, they're 3-1. There has to be something there. There is certainly just the will to win. The discipline, how you want to call that. But again, I just don't know how to project the 49ers right now. They just have a ton of injuries on that side of the ball. I just don't know how it's going to be. You go to the Detroit Lions, who have looked impressive thus far, and certainly right now could certainly rival the Eagles to be the favorite going into for the path to the Super Bowl through the NFC. They've looked great so far. They had a little bit of a slow start against the Packers week 1 because of just losing Ben Johnson on the coordinator side, but have picked it up as of late. They have. They look great. Goff has played well. Certainly Gibbs and Montgomery have played well too. Amon St. Brown too. Jamison Williams has had flashes. So that's a legitimate team. No question about that. If you wanted to argue with me that the Lions are the favorite, you would pick over the Eagles to make it out of the NFC for the Super Bowl. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I just favor the Eagles, of course, because again, reigning Super Bowl champions and are undefeated at this point. But certainly you have an open discussion to make the Lions a favorite to go out of the NFC, and that could be a preview potentially when we get That I would not be surprised if that was the championship appearance was Eagles and Lions at this point. They are the two best. The Buccaneers certainly have some of a case because of just offensively with Baker Mayfield, Mecca Ibuka, Mike Evans, and so forth. Defense is playing well on top of that too. But right now it would be Eagles and Lions. But Lions so far, good spot here. Week 5 they face Cincinnati, which should be a easier game for them. Current probability to make the playoffs 79%, with the win 83%. If they lose 67%, but I do see the Lions taking care of business against Cincinnati week 5. Moving to the Buccaneers for the 4th seed. God, Baker Mayfield has looked amazing this year. He's impressed me. He should certainly be in discussion as potentially a elite quarterback. I mean, you don't want to go as far as to say, but certainly should have somewhat of a discussion of that. He's played well. Emeka Ibuka has had a great start to his rookie season. All across the board, it's looked great thus far for them. They play Seattle. That's gonna be a tough game, no question. When you look at the seeding, it's the wild. The Seattle has the number 1 wild card spot right there on the fifth spot. So it is going to be very interesting how that plays out with that. No question that is going to be a very exciting game for week 5. Certainly could be one of the best games to watch there with those two teams. Seahawks with the defensive side, Buccaneers the offensive side. And again, you look at the current probability for the playoffs, 75% for current, 85% for a win, 69% for a loss. Look at the wild card right now, like we talked about the Seahawks, running up for the wild card number 1 spot there. Current position, 58% for current, 67% chance for a win, 47% chance to lose. So there's a lot on the table for them, especially for the Seahawks right now. It's going to put them in a bad spot early on in the playoff race if they lose this game. But again, for McDowell, what he's done for this team overall, defenses look great. Offense, Sam Darnold has played good. Jackson Smith-Njigba has played phenomenal too. On top of that, being no question the undisputed number 1 wide receiver there. So again, overall, it's been very exciting to see Seattle bounce back and has played well. I had question marks with Sam Darnold, and he's played good. Has made mistakes early on in the season, but so far has really cleaned that up and has played well as of late. So again, like I said, for week 5 for that Buccaneers Seahawks game, that's gonna be something to certainly watch. It's gonna be a very exciting game to see. Going to the 6th seed, the Rams. Like we talked about for the 49ers. I mean, it is just for the probability for the win percentage. It's a massive difference. Even though the Rams are in the 6th seed and the 49ers in the 2nd seed, the current playoff probability is a massive difference between those two. It is reverse, how you would expect it to be. And I do give the Rams a good shot to win week 5. I do. I like what Devontae Adams has brought to the table for the Rams thus far. Puka Nacua has built off of what we know him to be. Matthew Stafford has played well. Kyron Williams had a decent season. Defense is coming along too on top of that. So they have a good shot right now to dethrone the 49ers and take the number 1 spot and be one of the top 3 teams in the NFC going to the playoffs right now in the early in the season so far. Again, like I keep saying, still very early on in the year. A ton of things can change throughout the whole season, but still, The Rams have right now the best chance to take the NFC West. They do. 49ers are just riddled with injuries. I don't know if they'll ever be at full strength this year, so take full advantage of that, and they certainly have the probability of doing that this tomorrow on Thursday night. And for the Packers, 2-1-1. They were off to a phenomenal start for the year, 2-0 to start off the season, beating the Lions and Commanders, and I pinned them to be, even before the season started with the Micah Parsons trade, as a Super Bowl caliber team. I really did believe so. And since then, it has been worrisome. They have a shocking loss to Cleveland, and then they have the probably more surprising tie to the Dallas Cowboys. It is. I did not expect the Packers to be 2-1-1. I would have projected them to be, after the first 2 weeks, easy 4-0. Easily, they should be up there with the Eagles and the Bills as one of the only undefeated teams in the NFL, and it's been completely different. They've dropped 3 spots to the last place of the wild card. Again, I think they'll turn around. They'll change. They won't be the last team in the wild card at the end of the year. I believe so. But again, it just, as a Packers fan, you gotta sit here and just be kind of shocked, shell shocked by this, by stunned. 2-1-1 for the Packers that have Micah Parsons, have a good defense, have a good offense with Jordan Love, and again, just coming. I think it just gut wrenching with that tie at the end. I mean, it just 2-1. It's better than 2-2, but again, the last 2 weeks it should be easily 4-0. It should have easily been a win against the Browns. Should have been a win against the Cowboys. So, a little bit of a rough stretch. But we see this from other teams in years past, where they have a few weeks of a rough stretch and they bounce back. So I don't want to say this is doom and gloom. This is the end of the world for the Packers, but they have to wake up. And they are in a bye week this year. This week, I should say. Win for playoff percentage, 76% for the playoff percentage. I keep saying win percentage. I apologize. For playoff percentage, 76%. If we go to the Packers' schedule for the remaining season, let me pull up for you real quick here, if I can find the Packers here. So we're going into next few weeks. After week 5, you have Cincinnati. Should be an easy one. You would hope. Again, look at the Browns game. I don't want to say it's absolute, but it should be an easy game for the Bengals. The Cardinals are a hit or miss team. That should be a team they should manage to win. You do have the Steelers after that, which is going to be a tough game, but again, I think they should come out as victorious in that. Panthers going into November. Then you have the Eagles, which I thought at that point both these teams could be undefeated. That's certainly different now for the Packers case, and things could change for the Eagles too. But again, I thought that could have been another potential NFC Championship preview with that. But as of right now, how the Packers looked, I have to give the edge to the Lions so far. I do. But again, going into the Eagles game, they should have 4 more wins. We should be at 6-1-1 going to going to the Eagles game. No question they should win the next 4 games. It is set up for them. Again, toughest game is the Steelers, if that, but should certainly take down the Bengals. Should certainly take down the Cardinals. Should certainly take down the Panthers. It's set up for them. They just gotta not mess up. You can't have lapses like the Browns game, like the shootout in the Cowboys game, which shouldn't have been like that to begin with. So again, I'm not going to say, again, panic and it's all doom and gloom, but they have to wake up. They have to take advantage of the next 4 weeks or 5 weeks. We won't count the bye, just counting that too on top of that. And before they get to the Eagles game, they have to be set up perfectly to go to the Eagles game. And that could be a massive one at that point for them, depending on how the Eagles look at maybe they have a loss or two going into that game. And that could potentially be playing for the number 1 seed in the NFC. Who knows how it's going to play out, but the Packers, manageable for the next 4 weeks. They have to wake up and play well. And looking for the rest of the games, or the rest of the teams so far, you have the Falcons and Vikings, the 2 teams out of the playoffs so far. Looking at some surprising teams, not surprising teams, but teams lower on the bottom there. The Giants had their amazing win against the Chargers. Jackson Dart, which was the right thing to do. I made a short on there saying that they have to switch from Russell Wilson. Jackson Dart gives you a spark that is different from Wilson, just more athletic, younger, better arm, and so forth. And it showed that. It was exactly right what I said. They went out there and shocked the world and beat the Chargers at home in that one. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's going to they're going to flip a switch and play much better throughout the season and they're just going to make the playoffs. I doubt that. But it's only manageable. You look at the next game that they have is New Orleans. So they could potentially be on a 2-game winning streak right now. They have certainly, I would favor Jackson Dart over Spencer Rattler at this point. And overall, talent-wise, maybe the Saints have slightly a better team just because of the injuries that the Giants have now, especially with Malik Neighbors. But I would favor the Giants right now. So again, happy to see that for Giants fans get the win, get that great one for Jackson Dart in his first career start. We'll see how it does for Week 5 going forward with that. And then for the Saints, again, one of the very few undefeated or winless teams in the NFL right there. Did certainly put up a good fight against the Bills there. It was, again, as a Bills fan, I was worried going down the stretch there that they were going to kind of pull the upset off at Buffalo. They didn't. The Bills pulled away at the end, 31-19. But it's again, gotta give Kellen Moore some time. I don't see anyone on this quarterback room that is the franchise quarterback. Rattler has played okay, but certainly he's 0-10 as a starter. He's not the franchise quarterback. Tyler Show, the second round pick, is a waste of a pick. I mean, if that you're coming about a 26-year-old veteran seasoned quarterback that has played a lot in the college or collegiate level that couldn't beat out Spencer Rattler. Do we see him at some point? Probably, but again, it's just a waste of a pick for a second round. Absolute waste of a pick for this team. One, you're gonna be picking high next year and have a much better quarterback class and a much better choosing of quarterbacks at that point. So again, the Tyler Show selection in the second round was just an absolute waste. It was. It was stupid to begin with. I know you have a lot of questions about Shedeur Sanders, how he's as a quarterback. Is he really as good as he makes him out to be, or as some people make him out to be? But I would have taken Shedeur Sanders over Tyler Shough. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just the fact that you would take a 26-year-old quarterback that early in the draft is for what? I mean, that one just reminds me of Brandon Weeden for the pick for the Browns. Going back to that real quick years ago, it just reminds me of that 26-year-old rookie quarterback in the second round, and you think that he's gonna be your franchise quarterback. It's just idiotic for that. But overall, they've had some fights in the games. I don't want to say they've been blown out in all of them. They've had some close matches so far in to start the season, but again, very disappointing for Saints fans. But hey, setting up yourselves potentially well for the first overall pick, at least the top 3 pick, and you can have a much better selection at that point there. Maybe if Manning comes out, you can have that dream scenario, have another Manning in your franchise. So we'll see how things play out with that one. And it's going to wrap it up so far. I mean, going back to real quick for the Browns, I forgot to talk to them about the quarterback position after the loss against the Lions. They switched from Joe Flacco to Dillon Gabriel, which they should have done sooner. I either made a post or made a video about, I think it was more video about the Browns, that one of these guys should have started to begin with, either Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. One of these guys had to start because it was just an absolute waste to have Joe Flacco there in the lineup. He wasn't going to give you anything. This team wasn't going to make the playoffs. They're not a threat at all. It's just you're just wasting weeks for Joe Flacco and wasting time more so for the rookies that could give you a better idea. Hey, is Dillon Gabriel something? Is Shedeur Sanders something? Potentially, if you want to give him the option, but more so just focusing on Dillon Gabriel. You spent a third-round pick on it. I'm not saying that's like anything phenomenal, but it's still a decent draft capital when you could have went somewhere else in the draft at that point. You obviously like Dillon Gabriel for whatever reason. You favor him enough to be in the third round when he went maybe higher, certainly higher than expected. So give him the opportunity. It should have started, a few weeks ago at the very least. It should have started a few weeks ago instead of week 5. I'm happy they're doing the change now, but it just Joe Flacco being out there is a waste. Like for what reason? You got lucky against the Packers, and if it wasn't for that, you'd be 0-4 right now. So don't let that one win against the Packers fool you. You got lucky in the block kick, but I mean, you got to figure this out because pretty soon the 2026 draft is going to come, and you're going to be sitting there high up there, like I said, for the tight ends, for like the Saints, and you're going to be trying to find another quarterback, and you're just going to look back and saying, why did we draft 2 quarterbacks in 2025? Why did we draft Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round when it was an absolute waste, when we didn't want to give him an opportunity? So hopefully Dillon Gabriel they give him time. If even if he struggles, they give him time and have him figure it out and give you an idea of what he is. And then if not, you switch to Shedeur Sanders. You figure out what you have before going into the 2026 draft, when you're most likely going to use one of those 2 first-round picks to draft a quarterback. So we'll see what happens there. Dillon Gabriel will be facing Minnesota, which is going to be tough for him, for Brian Flores and what he does defensively for the Vikings. He's been great so far, arguably the best defensive coordinator in the league. But still, there's not really a good spot for Dillon Gabriel to start with because just the offense is bad. It is bad. You have certainly one of the few bright spots as of recently is Junkins, who certainly had a lot of controversy going to the in the offseason with of course the accusations and reports and so forth, and all these things are charges that maybe I could say I have to go back and say, but certainly off the field issues that he had there. Didn't sign his contract for a while up until I think week 2 he signed it officially, and week 1 and week 2 I think it was week 1, yeah, because he missed week 1 of the season. So again, met with a lot of controversy, 2nd round pick out of Ohio State, but has played well. One of the very few bright spots for this team so far. He's had 237 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if I go to his games real quick, in 3 games, he had 61 yards against Baltimore, 94 yards and a touchdown against Green Bay, 82 yards and a touchdown against the Packers. That's it. I mean, after that, it's very bleak for any quarterback that's going to be out there. But still, one of these 2 rookies have to start. You have to figure out what you have in the before you know it. It's going to be the end of the season. We're going to be in the offseason, going towards the draft, and then you're having to make the decision of, hey, are we going to stick with Dylan Gabriel as our quarterback in 2026, or are we going to take a quarterback high when we're probably going to be a top 5 pick next year? So we'll see how things play out for the Cleveland Browns there. Again, love the move, but I should have done much sooner than having Joe Flacco. I mean, the guy's thrown 6 interceptions in 4 games. So that should have given me a telltale sign about how Joe Flacco's been playing this year. And it's going to wrap it up. Again, it's only probably the longest video out of the 5 podcast videos thus far, but just breaking down the playoff picture and everything, how it's been through the first 4 weeks there. And this one didn't go through every team, because I don't think every team needs to be talked about per se, but certainly, again, overall, it's been exciting. Certainly been shocking, good or bad at some moments. But again, first quarter of the NFL season is in the books. We'll see how the second quarter starts, along with other things too. And then quickly before I wrap it up here, gonna quickly talk about the MLB scores for the wild card games. If you did not see that, going to those games there. Yesterday, you did have the Tigers take down the Guardians 2-1. Cubs take down Padres 3-1. Red Sox take down Yankees 3-1, and then Dodgers take down the Reds 10-5. Today, as right now, for the other half, or for the second part of the wild card there, you have the Guardians and Tigers at 1 o'clock. You have the Yankees and Red Sox at 6:08, Padres and Cubs at 3:08, and then the Dodgers and Reds at 9:08, potentially. All of them having a sweep at this point. If not, it'll be extended to October 2nd, if necessary, if it gets to that point. But that's going to wrap it up, like I said, for episode 5 of the SportsBruiserz podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed for this one. Again, I'll leave a link down below for the playlist, or if you want to just click on my YouTube page and you'll see a playlist that pops up on the top part of there, as well as, again, please follow me on SportsBruiserz, at SportsBruiserz on Twitter or X there. Again, post daily about many different things across the sports land. Again, my opinions, reports, breaking news, and so forth. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.